Well, it took a little bit to go live today. So if you saw me go, come on, that's because I was looking at the little spinny thing, waiting for it to go, you're live. We are live. It is Wednesday, June 16th at 3 o'clock p.m., which means it's time for Women in Business. I'm happy to see you all here today. Thank you for joining me as usual. I'm really excited about my guest today, so I'm not going to take a lot of time with the hoo-ha about what's going on. I want to get right to her and our discussion. My guest today is Adrienne Palmer, who is the editor-in-chief of Big Picture and Screen Printing magazines. She joined Big Picture magazine in 2012 after graduating from Ohio University's E.W. Scripps School of Journalism with a BA in magazine journalism. During her time with Big Picture, she has held the roles of assistant editor, associate editor, and managing editor. She added sister publication Screen Printing magazine to her resume in 2019. She's a 2019 Folio Top Woman in Media, spearheads Big Picture's annual Women in Wide Format Awards and Best of Wide Format Awards, as well as Screen Printing's annual Rising Star Awards and Women in Screen Printing Awards. Guess which awards we're going to talk about today. Is on the board of Printing United Alliance's Women in Print Alliance, is a founding member of the Rock Together Diversity and Inclusion Program, hosts the weekly podcast Screensaver, and represents the Big Picture and Screen Printing teams at numerous industry events year-round as a speaker, moderator, and panelist. And I'm going to bring her in now because I have to take a breath after that bio because, wow. Hi.
Hi, Christine. Thank you. I wasn't sure if you were going to share the entire bio, but now everyone knows.
Well, there's a lot of stuff there. I figured we should get it all out there. But of the many things that are in that bio, the first thing that we want to talk about today, certainly, and I'm going to put a link up here in case anyone wants to go look at it, is the Women in Screen Printing Awards. And first of all, I got to say, I love this because there aren't a lot of awards out there that are spotlighting women specifically. And I think we need that to happen more. So what was behind forming these awards? Because this is the second year they've happened, correct?
Yeah, and thank you so much. So they really stemmed from the Big Picture wide format industry. My predecessor, who was the editor-in-chief of Big Picture, Robin Donovan, 6 years ago now, decided that this award was really important for the wide format space. And so she put together the award, we worked on it together, and then she actually became editor-in-chief of our sister publication. And so I took the reins on for the Big Picture audience, and it really just took off. It started to feel as though it was more than an award, and it was becoming a movement. And so, yeah, so in our 6th year now with the Women in Wide Format Awards. And so when I joined screen printing in 2019, after getting to know the industry, I would say maybe for about 6 months, I decided we should do this for the screen printing industry. So we launched it in 2020 with our inaugural awards. We had 6 winners last year, and we'll do the same this year. Our editorial advisory board are our judges, and they go through a lengthy list of nominees. It's a big process. It's a big job. So kudos and thank you to them each year, that they will be doing this, that they have done this. And so, yeah, people now, the nominations are open through July 5th, which is coming up pretty soon. But you can nominate a deserving candidate at the link you mentioned, or you can just go to screenprintingmag.com/womenprint, an easier route there. And you can get more information.
That's also the link
to the
there's nomination form directly.
Perfect. Yeah. So you fill out information about your nominee. What we've found in the past is sometimes maybe someone in the industry who is really deserving of the award, but you don't know a ton of information about them.
That I was going to ask you about that. I'm so glad you're touching on this.
Yeah. So still fill it out. You could put not applicable. I will follow up. I will do some research. I make sure that our judges have all the information they need to make the right choice. So in the past, one of our winners, Tracy Johnston Aldworth, for example, she has a Wikipedia page. sent that along, So I will be able to find out more information about the person, hopefully, especially if they have a social media presence, really easy to connect and see what they're doing. But they do have to own a screen printing business. That's one of the qualifications. And you can't be a manufacturer of screen printing equipment. But yeah, I mean, the job form is I want to say less than 10 questions, and we can do the rest if you don't have a ton of the information.
Well, and actually, I'm really, really glad you said that, because when I first saw this come up, I was like, oh, I need to nominate some people, because, we know how I am about promoting women. And I looked at the form and I went, I don't know. I know people I want to nominate, but I don't know all the information so that's a very good thing. That I can put somebody up there and answer what I can answer, and you guys will fill in the blanks if I leave them. I love that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
The process is the people get nominated up until July 5th, and then your editorial board goes through and looks at everybody.
Yeah, they have a couple weeks to go through the form, go through any information that I send them, and then typically they have to share their top 10. And then we've done this on the wide format space. Then I will do a video interview with the top 10 to make it a little bit more personable, get to know them a little bit more, ask some deeper questions, they're not answering the nomination form. They could. We have had people nominate themselves, which I am all for. Promote yourself. Because not everyone's going to do it for you. So
exactly.
Yeah, so totally fine with that. And then, so once I have those interviews, then I send those interviews along, again, adding a lot to the process. But actually, the big picture editorial advisory board asked for this after a couple years. They really wanted to get to know the nominees. Last year, it was a resounding top 6 from the editorial advisory boards. We didn't have to do that for screen printing, but that we may have to do it.
Well,
this year.
And the other thing we should say too is that it's not just the United States, because you had, if I remember correctly, winners from Canada and Australia.
Correct.
In the inaugural awardee class, I guess we'll call them.
Yeah, absolutely. Jodie Taylor in Australia and Tracy Johnston Aldworth won last year. So yeah, from around the world.
So I think that's really cool too, that it's like not limited just to the US. It's wherever there's, I don't know. I guess I don't think of screen printers in Australia, but why wouldn't there be screen printers in Australia?
Yeah.
You don't think of it. Okay. So when these women win, basically, okay, let me put this question in a format that isn't going to be garbled. Here we go. So I know that Rock US is the sponsor of these awards, correct? So when these women win, is it the recognition that they're getting, or are there like prizes, or I don't know.
You do win you receive a beautiful trophy. So
okay, I like trophies.
Yes, big part of it. Last year, because of the pandemic, we had our award ceremony virtually. For the wide format awards, we're always recognizing the winners in person at Printing United. So, it's 2020, COVID, things.
Yeah, COVID kind of blew everything out of the water.
Yeah, so it was still an amazing celebration. You can actually watch it at screenprintingmag.com in our video section. It's super joyful. We actually get, which is a little different than what we were doing for the wide format awards. We were able to interview pretty much on the spot these 6 winners and talk to them. The audience got to ask questions. It was much more intimate than just an award. I shouldn't say just an awards because it's awesome, but an award ceremony at a booth. Typically a booth, then everyone kind of disperses, talks, amongst themselves. This was an award ceremony and a panel. So got to know the winners a little bit more. We are right now in the works of figuring out what we are going to do for the award ceremony, the celebration, all of those things with Rock US right now. because we have some trade shows coming up. So definitely stay tuned. And the winners also are recognized in this year it will be the August-September issue of Screen Printing Magazine. They get a full page to themselves. We ask them questions, showcase their work. And then, of course, that's also, displayed on social media and our website, newsletters, etc. So
there's a lot of publicity that comes with it. And I have to say, I printed out last year's when you recognized all the winners in the magazine. I saw it online and I was like, I need to interview these people.
Yes, and it's on my to-do list to connect you. So that will happen.
Well, I hope so, because I really think that, first of all, the whole concept of just recognizing women is, I think, such an important thing to be doing, especially since screen printing of maybe all the decorating disciplines is perceived more, I think, as like the jock decoration technique, I don't know why that is, but that's always the impression that I've gotten, that it's a bunch of guys that are doing it.
Right.
So seeing women being recognized for excellence in this field, I think is so, so important, especially as role models for young women who might want to do this someday.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such a big goal. It's to show that there is a viable, really cool career in screen printing for women. And that it's not always showcased. I'm trying to do a better job, not just in the awards, but in our editorial coverage, that there are women who own, not just even working in a screen printing shop, which is awesome, but owning businesses, owning huge businesses. So yeah, absolutely. To give, that stage to not only one woman, but 6 women, and then hopefully, even more in our regular editorial coverage is really important to me.
Well, I love that that's important to you. And I want to stick a pin in that for a minute, because we will be coming back to that. But I want to just talk a little bit about, I want to put this up again. And where is it? If you have someone you want to nominate, please go to this link and check these people, check this out, nominate them. If you already know who you want to nominate, go right to the form and do that. Because it's important. The more nominations you guys that get, the better quality of people you're gonna have to choose from. And I just love you guys to be overwhelmed, and it takes like a ton of time for you to make your decision.
And I will say that if you nominated someone last year and they did not win, they will be moved over this year. So if you've been nominated before, but if you've nominated someone, they didn't win last year, but maybe she's done some incredible things in the last year, send me an email and we'll add that to the nomination.
Well, and the other thing that I want to reiterate again too, is that if you want to nominate someone and you don't know the answers to all the questions that are on the nomination form, that's okay. It's still better to put down what you know and get them in the mix than to decide you're not going to do it because you can't answer all the questions. So don't do that, and just put them in there.
Yeah, or send me an email. We can talk it through. But yeah, definitely communicate. If you know someone, we'll figure it out.
Definitely. So the thing that we just stuck a pin in, I want to go back to it, because we were having, I have to say this first. I talked about this in the Women in Garment Decoration group today, but this is a Badass Women of Promo podcast. This is a link to a Badass Women of Promo podcast interview that Adrienne did. And it was wonderful. And she and Charity had a really substantive, good conversation that gave me enough content for us to talk for about 5 hours. But we won't. But it's really good. So go listen to it if you haven't. Badass Women of Promo is also the best name for.
Yeah. And it's very fitting.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charity, I've actually interviewed Charity. She's really fun.
Oh,
and it was a really good conversation. But you guys had a lot of really interesting things that you discussed in that show. But one of them was something you just mentioned, which is you said you're taking responsibility as the editor of the magazine to make sure that more women are being recognized, are being talked about in the magazine, are being, I'm assuming, writing for the magazine, getting up whatever opportunities there are.
Mm-hmm.
So this begs the question, if you are in a position where, like where you have opportunities, you're picking speakers, you're managing a magazine, you're, whatever it is that you're doing, how much responsibility do you think those people in those positions should have toward ensuring diversity, and not just having more women, but more people of color?
At the end of the day, what gets put in the magazine is something, it's what I've decided. So
Right.
Responsibility. We talked a little bit about this, before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I could, for every issue of the magazine, I could have a call for content, and whoever sends me something, that's what I'll put in the magazine.
Right.
And if I look at it over a course of 6 months, and the only people who have, or even less than, let's just say over a month or 2, 3 months, the only people who have submitted content are white older men. And again, there's nothing wrong with white older men. I never want to say that. It's just not representative of the industry. I would have
to. But as a side note, are you really, really tired of having to say that every time? I get tired of it too.
People know by now.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like I say it every time too. And I'm like, can't we just make a blanket statement that I don't hate men or white men?
Now. We'll do it.
Yes.
Now.
We don't hate white men. We like them just fine. We think they're talented and smart, and we like listening to them. We just like to have other people in the mix.
I'm marrying one. Everything's
well, there you go. See?
Right.
I've dated a lot of them. So
but it's true. It's okay. So that's our blanket statement. I would have to look at that myself and be like, okay, well, this isn't reflective of the industry. This isn't representative of the industry, because this is something that I've put together. I've decided that this is what the magazine is going to look like. That's on me. Mm-hmm. So I would then reach out to people of color, women in the industry, minorities, and say, hey, we would love you to write on this specific topic. Granted, that could be perceived as I'm only reaching out to them because they're checking that box. I don't see it that way, because the people I'm reaching out to are extremely knowledgeable, successful, etc. So where it is different, and I did mention this on the Badass Women in Promo podcast, when we have awards. So the Rising Stars Awards a couple years ago, it was all white men. Mm-hmm. And I had just kind of like taken on this role. So I wasn't really sure. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really sure about the industry. I didn't really have anyone to reach out to at that point. Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, I would have reached out to people and said, can you nominate someone? Because this isn't balanced. But when we posted the winners, someone commented our Instagram post and was like, what is this? This is so not representative. And I was like, well, we only received these nominations. So I take ownership of that, because at the end of the day, it's what we're putting out there, Sure. But then also you have to turn that on and say, why aren't we nominating people of color? Why aren't we nominating women when we look around at a trade show and that's what we see? Or we walk down the street in our shop and that's what we see. So kind of a long-winded response.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, actually, because if you don't have people in positions like yours that are working to drive some of these diversity initiatives and, initiatives to spotlight more women or people of color or whatever it is, then they don't happen, because ultimately you guys are the arbiters. Like you said, what goes in your magazine is ultimately determined by you. But by the same token, and this is kind of the chicken and the egg sort of thing, if you don't have people who are, number one, willing to put themselves out there and be that person, or who are willing to nominate people, then you don't have the material to do what you need to do. So This is a naughty conundrum we have here.
Yeah, I think we all have to work toward it together. So expos and events. If people are talking about it on podcasts, which we all are, and I do know that there are some trade shows who are definitely, I think our trade shows are going to look different this year. But if, over the past couple of years, if you're asking for people to speak and it's just like blanket statement, anybody can sign up, but you're the one who has to sign up. A lot of screen printing business owners aren't checking their email 24/7 looking for that opportunity. So maybe they don't have the time to be like, oh, I can do that. So if you then look at your speaker lineup and it is the exact same type of person down the line, then again, that's on you to reach out to people who would do amazing jobs speaking about technical expertise, business tips, anything within the industry that they're knowledgeable about. Then you should be reaching out to them, because wouldn't we rather have people who are really good at this versus just like the same people every year? I mean, I think that's just like the diversity in knowledge is just as important as the diversity in color and gender.
Well, and I think I want to get to some comments here. First of all, I have to laugh at Carolyn because apparently she got a keeper. She's married to a white guy. So, and Lisa says, hello, nice to see someone driving diversity. And then Carolyn is back with prime example. Women in Garment Decoration has 850 members. So they are represented, but not nominated. So, I mean, and Women in Garment Decoration has been, to circle to that for a minute since Carolyn mentioned it, that has been a really interesting experience for me, because that started out of a podcast that I did with two regular guys. That was about a panel podcast about women's issues. And somebody said we should have a group. So I made a group. The thing that has astonished me the most about the group is I really thought that it would be a lot more about pushing women to the forefront than it has been. It's been a lot more about supporting each other, which I think is great, and learning from each other, which I also think is great. But I don't know if they just need somebody, if somebody needs to be the prod, so to speak, and go, you need to do more of these things, you need to do more of these things, or what it is. So I guess maybe this is a question you don't know the answer to, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because what fun would it be? Or if you have any thoughts on this, is part of the problem with the equation that women are either kind of culturally socialized to wait for someone to ask them, or they're not comfortable putting themselves forward? Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, it's a good question. In my experience, because I have done a lot of women in print panels there, and I've also interviewed all male panels, and there's usually like a bigger nervousness with women and public speaking. I mean, sure, I think we're all dialed in to be nervous, to be insecure, to also feel as though, well, there's somebody better fit for this. I think that's huge. I think at the Women in Print breakfast at Printing United Alliance a couple of years ago, there was a speaker. She was there mainly to talk about mentorship. But I think one of the stats, and of course I'm not going to remember the full number here, is that just women don't promote themselves at all. I will talk about how great you are all day, Christine, but I'm going to be very uncomfortable.
Oh, hello, queen of this.
Yeah, so I think a lot of women are like that, and I think they're just head down wanting to be successful in their business, which is such a hard job to begin with because of all the different struggles that we have to go through as a woman. So I think that's like a deeper rooted historical.
I really think it is that we're kind of socialized to wait until somebody taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, you're good, you can do this, instead of just kind of having innate confidence that, I am. And I wonder also, I'm I'm going to confess it here. I'm 52, so I grew up in, the 70s. I know you're younger than me because you graduated college in 2012, so you're somewhat of a different generation. So I think as I watch the generations go on, it does get the messages that young women are getting are different. Mm-hmm. I had to unlearn a lot of things I was taught when I was young, because I grew up in the age of girls don't ask boys out and you never brag about your accomplishments because boys don't like girls who are, I don't know, full of themselves was what I was told. But, right. And everything was still kind of focused around the goal was to be attractive to men, and therefore that was more important than maybe having personal success or accomplishing your goals or whatever it was.
Right.
So, I know there's some of that in there too. And I know there's probably still some of that in there still, even for people your age. But
yeah,
do you think there's differences?
Yeah, and I was just think this is probably not answering your question right now, but it's something that I just thought of. It's a lot of going somewhere and seeing yourself in that room. So if you look at a speaker lineup and you don't see yourself, there's like okay, this isn't for me. That's how I felt at my first trade show, and I've talked about it before. I walked in, there's a bunch of old white men in khakis and polos, and I was just like, I was 22 or 23. I was like, industry is not for me. I don't feel comfortable. I don't see myself. And I know that that's a big issue with people of color and for women in the industry. So it's probably just like this thought of like, oh, it's an old boys club. So even if I try, I'm probably not going to get, picked or anything like that. So that's one thought. But then your question was unrelated.
Well, no, you actually, I think you answered it a little bit, in that you need to see, you have to have role models. You need to see yourself in the picture, or you have to be brave enough to say, this picture needs to change. I'm going to put myself in the picture and that it'll look different. But being the first one is tough, I think.
And I think that's a big reason why we're doing the awards and why it's important to showcase women in this way. Yes, I get the emails, where are the Men in Print Awards? Okay, well, they've been going on forever. Women have not been nominated for things, within our industry. Women are not asked to be speakers. So we're having these awards. I don't want to have these forever. That would mean we're not progressing at all. But at this time, it's super important to recognize women, because they're not, they're not being recognized in other ways. And then also the younger generation isn't able to see them as these successful leaders in our industry, which is what they are. And, hopefully in 5 years, we can just have, Leaders in Print Awards, and
there you go. I like that.
Great mix. And the Rising Stars Awards, have changed. There have been women winning the awards, now, but yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting topic, and I'm rereading the Confidence Code, which is from two women journalists, and it's just like, that history, that psychology of what goes on in our minds, and it's a lot of what you were told certain things, and so if you're told you're not even supposed to have a career other than, raising your child, which is a career, which is a job. It's just a mindset, and it's something that we have to change, and conversations like this hopefully help.
I hope so. Well, and I think there's just a lot to unlearn about what we tell young girls and young women about what women are supposed to be like. I think we're better at it than we were when I was growing up. But, the sit down and be quiet, and women don't make noise, or girls, nice girls aren't loud, or whatever it is. And it's like, you know what? Nice girls are plenty loud, dude. Get with the program.
I can be both.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, there's still, and I think in the back of a lot of women's brains, there's still this thing that says you're supposed to be nice and you're supposed to be whatever ladylike means, that's what you're supposed to be. And that if you put yourself out there or you advocate for yourself, then you're not doing that. And I mean, I want to be a whole, full, well-rounded person. And that means sometimes I'm going to need to stand up and go, hey, I'm here. Hello.
Yeah.
Can I be on your thing? Can I do this? You know? And hopefully if enough women do it, then I'm laughing at Carolyn because she's putting comments up here that are just making me laugh. Okay, let's see. I think we are more hesitant to show up and say we're professionals sometimes. I think that's true.
Yeah, even in my friend group sometimes it's like, oh, you won an award? Like, I want to hear about that. I want to be happy for you. But I think, it's just like.
Now, when you won your Folio Top Women in Media Award, did you put it up on your social media? Did you tell people?
Yes and no. I did. I'm okay with doing that stuff. I think also because I am so proud of Big Picture and screen printing and my team and everything that we do. I always feel like anything that I'm doing, it's so associated with the brand. So any way to push the brands, I'm like, yes, this is it. But I was like, when I won the award, I was like a little hesitant. Like, is this too much like about me? But that passed in about 2 seconds. I was like,
what makes me there? That answer just gets me so much because that's totally how I justify things. I'm like, it's benefiting the team.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, hey, I accomplished this cool thing. How awesome am I? It's like, it's benefiting. I don't know that men run the same calculations, I gotta say.
No. I mean, the reason that I won that award is because my team at the time were two, if we're going to talk about badass women, they, yes, totally in that category, were two female editors at the time, and they filled out this nomination form. And the reason I say the Screen Printing Award nomination is just so small is because the Folio Women in Media nomination form is gigantic, and they spent time to do that. So, I would never have won that award if it wasn't for them. So it just seemed like a culmination of everything. And I mean, I don't know. I always say it takes a village, and I try to always say we. And if I listen back to things and I say it's like super cringeworthy because it's not just me who's doing all of this. I have such an incredible team. But yeah, you're right. That's probably a female thing to be like, well, it wasn't just me.
And I wonder sometimes how that impacts us if we're always, and again, not bashing men. So there's my obligatory disclaimer, but men seem to have a tendency to be more willing to claim their achievements and put them out there, to say, I did this. This was me. I mean, not that men don't give credit where credit's due, because I've worked for several men who were amazing at that. But I just wonder if that's part of the reason that there is the discrepancy there is sometimes, is because we are more oriented to the we, and they might be more oriented to the I, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And it's a greater inequality conversation too, and probably it's just something that screen printers in general, everyone in the industry, business owners, have to recognize. And it goes into pay, it goes into opportunities for women, it goes into just how many women are in the industry, why aren't there more women in the industry? And then I don't know, this conversation, it's a good conversation.
Well, that's the thing, is
so many different outlets.
A lot of the conversations we have on this show, I feel like I want to take to, like, I want to have a traveling road show or something and go to different venues and talk and talk and talk, because there are so many variables in this whole conversation. And I have more comments I want to put up. Carolyn says, I taught my daughter to stick her neck out. She is 37 and a force to be reckoned with. So, I mean, it is some of the teaching.
Yeah, For sure.
And I love this too from Myra, his wife, Brian's wife, Myra was my guest last week. And he says, I never blow my own horn, but scream from the rooftop how great Myra is, which that is a whole different conversation though, is that if you have allies, so maybe that's a conversation. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. So I have been lucky in that I have found allies in men who had platforms. I mean, two regular guys lent me their platform once a quarter for 2 years to do a panel podcast about women's issues. And now that I've moved on to doing this, they're carrying it on themselves, which I think is awesome. So men are out there that do that sort of thing. The question is, how do we create more of them?
Yeah, and I think I think kind of the blanket statement that we said, like, we're not out to get you or looking for your demise or anything like that. We need you. We need you to be supportive of us. Mm-hmm. So be part of these conversations. Like Brian's here watching this. That's huge,
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Brian.
Yes. I think a lot of the times, in the women in print panels I've gone to, it's like, I want to make sure that there are men in the audience. So that's important. So show up to these things. Don't think that, we had a live webinar yesterday for the LGBTQ plus community in the screen.
I saw that.
And you didn't have to be in that community to go, but come and learn and listen and understand the struggles that that community is dealing with. So come to a women in print panel, understand, you might be the manufacturer at a booth who, when a woman comes up, you ignore her and say where her husband is. You may not even know that you're doing it. You may also have, little microaggressions for people of color that you don't even know you're saying. So come to these sessions, get some education. And then that's the first step, also becoming aware of maybe things that you've done in the past, treating women in a different way, understanding that issue. And then taking it a step further, making changes within your business. Are you looking at your salaries? Are they equal to two people who just joined your company, male and female? What does your harassment form look like? What are you, how are you having conversations with your employees? If you hear somebody saying something to a woman that isn't right, what are your next steps? So, and also hiring women. We can't have women in the industry if you aren't hiring them. And that gets into a bigger conversation of mentorship and bringing younger people, especially women, into the industry at a young age to see that they can do these things. Vic Jones with Inbound Inc., she's doing that. She's bringing inner city young kids into her shop, showing them hey, your soccer jersey, this is how we print it. And we can put your name on it.
That's very cool. I love that.
And then oh, wait, you're a female, you're Black, you own this business. That's what it looks like. I can do that too, so it's just showing this opportunity. So a lot of different levels there, the personal, personal level, taking accountability, then as a company level, and then on an industry level, and making sure we're hiring and we're mentoring and we're promoting.
I think that's definitely true. And I think that, the mentoring thing I want to touch on for a minute, because that was another thing that I've brought up in women in garment decoration in the past. Hey, what about setting up a mentoring program? And the response I get back is pretty much, well, I don't know that I know enough to be a mentor. Or alternatively, I don't know if I have enough time to be a mentor. And I'm like, okay, not invalid.
Yeah. So we started the mentorship project with screen printing in May. And it's a 6-month match program. And we have, I want to say 30 different matches for the industry, and a lot of women as mentors and mentees. And we're only asking, once a month, meet with them on Zoom, over the phone, in person if you can. So that's not a huge time commitment.
No, that's not a huge time commitment.
But what we're finding is that it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So that person who said, I don't know if I know enough, even if you are a mentor, you're going to learn something from your mentee, and vice versa. So I would say just, try to do those things, like take it one step at a time. And if you don't want to be part of the mentorship project next year, that's fine, but maybe just find someone in your local area that you can help, because mentorship is so huge. And it's not just like technical skills, it's business skills, it's life skills. And we're getting some really great responses from the communication that's happened already through the match program. And I think women especially need to be on board with that.
I really agree, because I think the other half of this, and Lisa just said, and I think I love that too, but love the idea of mentoring kids. But the idea of a mentorship program for young women who might be interested in getting into embroidery or screen printing or, garment decoration of any kind, doesn't really matter, or promo products or whatever it is. But like you said, the power of taking inner city kids to a female owned, person of color owned business is huge, because they get to see somebody who looks like them who's doing this.
Yeah, and Vic's doing an awesome job. Last year, COVID kind of messed things up, but I know she's planning to get back to it this year. And it's just, it's like super important.
Well, it is super important, because, you read the studies and you read all the science and everything, and it says you can't aspire to what you don't see, and you can read all the things about the importance of like Nichelle Nichols in the original Star Trek, it being a Black character that was on the bridge and had a position of responsibility. And that had almost never happened before on TV. I'm a Star Trek fan, so.
Sorry, I'm not too familiar, but I understand.
But, it's stuff like that where if you can see somebody else that's doing it, or they're modeling the behaviors, then it seems more likely for you to be able to do it, I think.
Yeah. I hope. And so if you're seeing that at a young age and you're getting those behind the scenes experience, and anybody could do that as a screen printing owner. You can just meet with your local schools, or even some local after school programs, and just start talking to your community and see if that's an opportunity. And then really good point. D'Angela Williams, also, she's a former Women in Screen Printing Award winner, and she has a mentorship program because she was going into high schools. And then I'm pretty sure once a year she chooses one young lady to mentor. And it's a huge process that she goes to make sure that this person can, start their own business and get up and running. And it's super cool. So the opportunity is there for you to give, to give someone an opportunity, like that would be huge and would really help make the industry more diverse.
Well, and I think the thing we need to remember is a lot of people look at, if I reach out to somebody, if I become a mentor, if I, join any of these programs, it's going to be a huge time commitment or a time suck. And I've already got a family and a business it doesn't have to be. You can decide how much time you have to give. But even if you only have a little bit, if you give that time, you can make a big difference.
Yeah, I was a mentor to a senior at Ohio University 2 years ago. And we met once a month, and we texted, of course, kind of like in between, but we had really great phone conversations. She's super talented. She's been in her career now for a year. She's a broadcaster. She's already been nominated for 3 Emmys. I was not helping her out that much. She had her own thing going on. I was like, girl, you don't even need this mentorship. But I helped her with certain things. I helped her with her resume. I helped her, she was still emailing people from her OU account. And I was like, you should create your own Gmail. It's small little things like that you're connecting with someone. And then also you can help with networking. I was making sure that I was posting her resume and things like that on LinkedIn. It's just like helping people out and having those connections that are just definitely important.
Well, and I think you touched on something, because I just got a call yesterday from someone else in the industry, and I'm not going to say who had a sudden job change and it didn't work out. And she was like, hey, I'm just looking for contacts, and if you hear of anything, can you let me know? And she referenced a talk I did at the Shirt Lab Women's Nexus panel about networking. And I was like, okay, somebody listened. Cool. But I think that's another thing that women need to get better at, is tapping their networks. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we're taught to kind of wait until somebody offers or until we're tapped on the shoulder. And it's harder for us to go, us as women, to go, I need help, or can you put me forward for this? Or I'd like to meet this person. Can you make an introduction? I mean, the first time I asked somebody to help promote this show was really hard. Mm. And I was like, but I don't know enough people to keep this show in guests. And I can't find all the interesting people if I don't ask, you know? But it was really, I was like, I have this little show, and could you maybe, you know, and now I'm like, hey, can you do this? Because, you know.
Yeah, it's the experience. It's feeling comfortable. It's that confidence that only comes with said experience. So the more you do it, the more you're going to be comfortable. Just same with like public speaking. So if you're really, really good at maybe say, special effect printing, and you want to do speak on it at a conference, like it's gonna be really scary the first time. Once you start doing it, you're like, oh, this is what I do in my shop. This isn't hard. Like
this isn't tough. Yeah. Oh, I still remember the first time I did a live seminar. The only thing that saved me is they had a podium in that room for some reason. And I never at that show had a podium in any other room ever, but in that one room, they had a podium. I was holding that podium so tight, but I made it through, and I was good enough to get asked back. And then now I love it and I thrive, and I've missed it terribly not being in those rooms. So I get to teach 3 classes at Applique Getaway in July, and I'm so excited. Anyway.
Oh, good.
But I mean, I get the fear of being on camera. I get the fear of speaking in front of people, because I have that. I've experienced that. But it sounds harsh, but I almost want to tell the women who tell me that, like, well, buck up and get over it, camper. You know?
I remember one of the women in wide format panels we had at Printing United one year. A guy came up to me after, and he was just like, it made me sad because every time, there were 6 people on stage. So when one person was talking, he said the other women just kind of had their head down, like they looked as though they didn't feel as though they belonged there. And of course I'm on the, I'm too busy trying to, ask questions. Like I didn't notice that. And it just made me sad. I was just like, they're up here winning this prestigious award and they still don't feel like they should be here, or they're just like very nervous to be in front of a large group. So, and again, that it all boils down to, who you are as a person. There are men who feel the same way, for sure, but there is a different layer there for females.
Well, I think also that women tend to, not all women and not all men for that matter, but women tend as a gender, I think, more to feel like they should be a little more self-effacing. They should be a little more unobtrusive, I'm a performer and it's hard for me. I mean, I sang for years. I did solos and I did musicals. I did all this stuff. It's still hard for me to get up sometimes and say, you should listen to me, you know? But at the same time, I think if we can't, it's a skill we have to cultivate. You have to find the comfort level with it, I guess.
I think there are so many women in our industry though, who are not afraid to speak their, so what we need to do better, is have those women in speaker sessions and educational sessions, etc. So that's just like the norm. The women who are super good at it and love it and are great at it, have them be on stage, have them in our magazine, things like that. And so then it won't be just like this one sole person who's like very nervous to do it and it gets up there and it's just like, what am I doing? You're part of a larger group. I don't know. It's just, I think we still need to be more representative.
I
the women
agree.
who are okay with doing this, because I'm okay with I'll talk all day long. So if you see a group of women who are doing this, you probably feel a little more comfortable.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about too, and this just occurred to me recently, but I haven't done anything about it yet, is maybe being on camera boot camp, or how to give a talk boot, or a video or something. And I haven't worked out all the details yet on that, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, talking about it doesn't seem to be enough. Telling people you're good at this, you need to do something about it, you need to move forward, whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be motivating enough people to move more to the forefront. So I'm wondering what the next step is. And I think you're doing some of it in having the panels that you're having and the awards that you're having and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there needs to be more, but I'm not sure what that is yet. Yeah. So any thoughts on that? That's like not a tough question at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it again, so you kind of mentioned like, oh, you're really good at this, you should do this. And then it's kind of like an stop. Okay. Well, then the onus is on them. Just as an example that I'm thinking of now for the Screensaver podcast, I reached out to one of the Rising Stars Award winners, Veronica Anderson, who I knew was pretty camera shy and, kept to herself. I could tell immediately during the awards, she was like, obviously very happy to be on there, but, she wasn't going to share a ton. I reached out to her and asked her if she would be on the podcast. And I knew that it was out of her comfort zone, but I asked her, she said yes, we got on it. We did an amazing podcast about design and having in-house design and how to speak to designers. And like, once we got that conversation going, and I'm sure she would do another one now.
Right.
So it's just, you can't just like stop, like you should do this. Like, no, will you do this? I've scheduled a time and date for us.
Well, and you're very right, because I've had several people on this show that were really like, I'm really camera shy, I'm not sure how this is going to go. And to a woman, after the show was over, they've all said, oh my God, that was so fun. I'm so glad I did this.
Yeah. So practice. It's that opportunity and like, you're just getting used to it. But I do think that there are, public speaking sessions that, you can provide, or tips and tricks to make that comfort level, that confidence level, grow.
Well, and the other thing I think maybe we need to start looking at too is that maybe a clearinghouse post or a clearinghouse something somewhere where, okay, these are the opportunities that are available. Because when we say that, the DAC show or one of the shows, doesn't matter which show, is making, or like Screen Print Award nominations or whatever, they're on a website somewhere. They may not be emailed to anyone. They may not, you may have to be predisposed to look for these opportunities to find them. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if maybe another way to motivate some people would be to have a clearinghouse somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I mean, it's not definitely just not a one and done thing. And with the awards, we're making sure we're posting in, women specific groups like we did here, and sending direct emails, reaching out to people individually, especially if like someone in the past has talked about women in screen printing, I'm going to send them an email like, hey, this is happening again this year. So there's just so many different levels of, awareness that you have to put out there. And probably the same, if DAX is reaching out to people for panelists, I'm sure that they are also needing to be on social media doing this and sending direct emails to people. That's probably what's happening, is they're sending out emails to people who have been speakers in the past, and those speakers are like, heck yeah, this is great, I'm going to do it again. And then it's like filled up.
Yeah. And then you end up with
the people who saw the email, like either thought it was, like just saw the headline and was like, oh, it's a DAX email, I'm already signed up to go to the conference, this doesn't relate to me. So definitely needs some like follow up. But yeah, I mean, if there's a space out there for things like this, that would be good.
Well, I think that circles back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, which is who has the responsibility. And I think ultimately the responsibility is everybody's responsibility. If you're in a position like yours, you need to be responsible for making the effort to get whatever your thing is in front of as wide a population as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and as diverse a population as you can. On the side of people like me, we need to be spending the time to be aware of all the opportunities that are out there. And if we don't find an opportunity that we want, get hold of people and say, I'd like to do this. I think this is important, which is something I'm now looking in my own head and going, I need to take more responsibility for that. Because I keep saying we need to have, women, we need to have discussions like this at trade shows, but I'm not really hitting up any of the trade shows to make that happen. So
yeah. That's also like time, and like there's just a lot. I mean, you can't fully, you do a lot in the day. The giant list, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I totally get what you're saying, and yeah, it is the responsibility of everyone. And if you're someone who wants to speak, then and you're not getting those emails, or you're still getting frustrated. You look through Screen Printing magazine and you're like, I don't feel represented at all. Like, please, like, let me know. Please send me an email, because I want to have the best magazine, best content for our industry, and that when people read it, they, not just even on the technical side, but like in terms of gender, in terms of color, that they're seeing themselves in the magazine. So if I'm not doing well, and I would assume that the bigger events would totally be receptive to that too. Like,
yeah, I think, and I see signs that events are jumping on board. It was trying to remember which show it was, PPAI, I think. I saw a link earlier today to some women-oriented thing that they're doing, and their speaker panel was like a lot of women and a few men, and I was like, okay, you got that right, because I've seen women's event things where the speakers are all guys, and I'm like,
that's interesting.
That's not really, that doesn't really work. But the other thing that's interesting too is that I think we also need to get over the idea that men who are interested in these topics are the outliers, because I know when I did the Women's Nexus, there were men who came to the event, and it was billed as a Women's Nexus, women-oriented conference. And somebody said to me afterwards, it was weird that there were guys there. And I was like, no, I was really happy there were guys there, because I thought the discussions had an added dimension, because you could get the other side of the equation.
Yeah, so, I think it's great. The Women in Print breakfast that we were doing at Printing United, I would always invite all of my male team members to come. We have to be supportive of each other. We have to learn from each other. Yeah, I would think that that would be bad on women to be like, you're not here. Like, we've already been shut. We don't need that. We need everyone to be working together, and there to be more equality. We don't need to be shutting people out.
Well, I say that running a group that doesn't allow men, but
well, that's different. I think that's different. I'm talking about more of a public sphere.
Yeah, in the public space, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I'm
on a board with all women, and I don't believe that there should be men on that board. It's a Women in Print board. So I'm not saying I agree every aspect, that men should have their voice, because they've already had that for quite some time. And especially if we're asking, there are questions that are female specific, and that goes back to the mentorship thing. Like, what do I wear to a trade show? What do I wear to this interview? I remember I asked my former boss, what do I wear to this trade show? Because I didn't have any females to ask. And his response was like crazy. It's like, he didn't know how to say, he didn't know what to say to me, so if I had a female mentor in the print space who I could go to and be like, I don't know what to wear to my first trade show, they could have shared that information with me. So there are definitely women specific things that we need to have that community for.
I totally agree. And I think, in the case of women in garment decoration, that was one of the questions I asked at the beginning of the people who were there at the time. And they were like, no, we want it to be. And I've had several women say to me, this is the only place where I can go where my husband or my kids or my, my sons or whatever can't see what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So
And there
it's
are
like
things
I
that
can
you don't want to
vent and
share.
talk about stuff.
Yeah, there are definitely things that, I mean, I've had, harassment issues in the past that it's like been uncomfortable
Sure.
to talk to, even to my partner about. So,
Mhm.
I can imagine that it's much more open and much more, there's that comfort knowing that there are other people in this room, that it's a safe space, and that they've probably
Mhm.
gone through very similar issues that you have, and you have that sounding board that's not going to have any like level of, hopefully not judgment, but something that
Well,
could be.
we try to keep it a judgment-free zone, and I really hate to say this, but we're at an hour.
Wow.
I told you, goes fast. So I want to really, really quickly, if you want to find Adrienne, you can go here. If you want to learn about the Women in Screen Printing Awards, go there. And if you want to nominate someone, go here.
Perfect.
And I will put this all up and make sure that everybody has the links. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pop you out and say goodbye. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Whoops. I moved too fast, Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the comments. This was a great conversation. I think the first of many, hopefully that will happen. We need to keep talking about this stuff, people. I know I preach that a lot, but it's really, really important and we need to do it. And honestly, I love these conversations because I think the only way we're going to make change is if we keep talking about this stuff and we keep figuring out how to do it better. So that's the important thing. Thank you all for being here. I hope you'll join me next week. At this point, I'm not exactly sure what next week's going to be, but it will be good, whatever it is. So please come join me. And I will see you next Wednesday. Thank you all for being here. Bye now.